Hello and welcome to the F1 News Zone, the show where we round up all the biggest stories in Formula 1 right now. The season opening Australian Grand Prix is on this weekend, so let's have a look at the biggest stories ahead of the race in Melbourne. This week we question whether claims that Leclerc is clearly faster than Sir Lewis Hamilton at Ferrari are accurate. Oscar Piastri has signed a contract extension with McLaren on the eve of his home race, and Gabriel Bortoleto has responded to Marko's B driver comments. If you're watching on YouTube, skip to the timestamps in the video description to watch the story that you're most interested in. But without further ado, let's dive in. So I saw a story coming into this season that apparently the financial disparity between what Oscar Piastri was paid at McLaren and what Lando Norris was paid at McLaren was going to be a bit of a problem between the two, and I respectfully disagreed when I saw that news. I thought, well, these are two drivers in different stages of their career. They've achieved different things. Yeah, at the end of the day, the pay is different. It's always going to be for someone who began their Formula 1 career in 2023 in Oscar Piastri's case and 2019 in Lando Norris's case. Now, Oscar Piastri, I mean, a lot of people were kind of highlighting the fact that his salary was only, in inverted commas, I think it was about $5 million, but he earned about $15 million or so in bonuses last season because he performed so well. Now, that disparity between the two of them, that gap has been plugged because, or at least partly plugged anyway, because Oscar Piastri has signed a new long-term deal for McLaren, which is a fantastic move not only by McLaren, but also for Oscar Piastri too. He's going to get more pay, which he believes he deserves, and I think he does deserve given his performances. I think he's an excellent driver. And yeah, just great news on the eve of his home race, the debut race in 2025, the Australian Grand Prix. So let's have a look at the full story on the F1Chronicle.com, guys, and I'll give my thoughts at the end of the video as always. Just as Lando Norris flirts with his own future, teammate Oscar Piastri has been cemented at McLaren for several more years. In a pre-season interview with NBC, the 2024 Drivers' Title runner-up and arguable 2025 championship favourite, Lando Norris, was asked about his long-term future on the grid. "I can't answer that one," he smiled. "I know exactly which team I would love to go to. It's the team that everyone wants to be a part of at some point in their career. But I'm very happy with McLaren." Lando Norris to Ferrari confirmed. Indeed, just over a year ago, Norris agreed a multi-year extension to his existing contract, which was already due to run out until at least the end of the 2025 season. However, it's clear that he might one day accept to move from orange to red, just like Lewis Hamilton. "It's a cool story for him to go to Ferrari," Norris said when asked about his British countryman's move from UK-based Mercedes to Italian-based Maranello. "A lot of people said it's not the right thing to do and so forth, but I would probably do the same if I was in his position." For his teammate Piastri, however, the Mark Webber-managed Australian is clearly not dreaming of Ferrari yet, having agreed his own contract extension on the eve of his home event in Melbourne. The 23-year-old Piastri was contracted to the Woking-based team throughout the end of 2026, meaning his new deal probably now runs longer than Norris's does. In the official statement, McLaren mentioned that Piastri will now be at the team for many years to come. However, Piastri was outpaced by Norris in 2024, and Red Bull advisor Dr. Helmut Marko thinks the Australian is set to trail for another season. "It is clear that he, Norris, looked a lot better than Piastri in Bahrain," he said after pre-season testing. Well, I mean, look, you know, I don't know if this will go out. No, this is going to go out after my bold predictions do for the 2025 season. So it's already out there. I've given a bold prediction of Oscar Piastri winning the World Championship this year in the drivers, which I don't think is likely. That's the whole point of a bold prediction. It's a bit of fun at the end of the day, guys. But yeah, interesting comments from Norris about Ferrari. I mean, I know what he's saying. He's right. He's right. I mean, was it Vettel that said it? Everybody's a Ferrari fan. Deep down, everybody's a Ferrari fan. And I get that. I do, because there is an allure, an appeal from the red team, the Scuderia, the prancing horse, you know, that no other team has, because they've been there since the start. They are, I've said it many times, they're the Italian national team in Formula 1. They're the godfather. You got to kiss the ring. You got to pay your respects to Ferrari. Just the way it is, you know, even if you don't like him, you got to respect them. Just simple as that. Would Norris like to go to Ferrari one day? Yeah, of course he would. I mean, he's had his entire career so far at, you know, at McLaren. Thinking cynically as well, I think you could, you know, kind of perceive what he's saying as kind of a, what do we call it now, a bargaining chip, you know, to be like, well, you know, McLaren, if you want to secure my services for a bit longer, you might have to pony up a bit more, because, you know, I'm thinking about going to Ferrari, mate. I'm liking the Italian food and the weather. He's not going to go anytime soon. You know, I personally think that, I mean, quite literally, Leclerc and Hamilton are contracted with that team until the end of 26. So the earliest possible move he could do there, in theory, is around 27. I know contracts can be broken and so on and so forth, but, you know, it's not going to happen for a long time. And I don't see him doing it anytime soon. I think that Leclerc and Hamilton are going to be at that team together until the end of 27. I think Hamilton may retire after that, depending on how things are going. But hey, look at Fernando Alonso. He's going to keep racing in Formula 1 till he's at least 45. So Hamilton has a few years still to catch up. But yeah, Norris to Ferrari. Could you ever see that happening, guys? Be honest with me. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. It feels like I've been doing a lot of quotes recently from Dr. Helmut Marko, and one got highlighted to me yesterday. One that I take a bit of issue with. Now, at the end of the day, we all know what Marko's like. He is the Red Bull senior advisor to the team. He is constantly stirring the pot, saying stuff about McLaren, saying stuff about Ferrari, just basically trying to, you know, manipulate and try and master the press conference, as it were. You know, the Mourinho of Formula 1, I think you could possibly call Helmut Marko when it comes to stuff he says. A lot of the stuff that he says, I don't think he really believes, and he's just doing it to kind of serve the cause of Red Bull in the media, which some people have a problem with, some people don't. I don't really, to be honest. I don't think he's doing anyone any harm. It's just part of the game at the end of the day. But when it comes to Bortoleto, now, Bortoleto is driving for Sauber this year. He is the Formula 2 World Champion. He is making his debut for the Swiss outfit that will become Audi next season. Sauber are not going to be competition for Red Bull. I think there's a very strong case to say that Sauber aren't going to be competition for anybody other than themselves. I think they're probably going to have the worst car on the grid again this season, but certainly, even if they had a marked improvement over 2024, Sauber are going to be in and around the back of the midfield, you know. There's a real case to say they'll be back markers, but even if you're being generous, 8th, 9th, 10th, you know, that's just where they're going to be, you know, simple as that. But yeah, he's come out with very, insulting comments about Gabriel Bortoleto. And yeah, this is a little bit painful to really read, because at the end of the day, I know the guy. I interviewed him not too long ago. He's a really, really nice kid, and I think he's a supreme talent, and I think he's a real hope for Brazil for the future in Formula 1. But let me just read out what's been said here, guys. Now, I don't have an article for this on F1Chronicle.com, but I do have a post on X, formerly known as Twitter, from our F1 Chronicle account on there. So do go follow us at F1 Chronicle if you're on Twitter these days. But let me just read out what's been said, and I'll give my full thoughts on what he said at the end of the video. Bortoleto has responded to comments made by Red Bull Motorsport advisor Helmut Marko about his ability on the eve of the 2025 Formula 1 season, vowing to, quote, prove him wrong, end quote, and make him regret what he said. I like that. In a recent appearance on Service TV, Marko shared his thoughts regarding this year's new wave of drivers, putting Bortoleto in a B category, despite the Brazilian youngster's back-to-back championship success in Formula 3 and Formula 2. Asked for his reaction ahead of this weekend's Australian Grand Prix, a cool and calm Bortoleto tackled the topic head-on, while keen to avoid making it a big thing out of it and aiming to do the rest of his talking on the track. I think Helmut is a guy that is for a very long time in F1, he commented. He has put a lot of very talented drivers in F1 in the past, but he's also put some more drivers that have failed in Formula 1. I have to be honest about him. I've got respect for him, for the achievements with the drivers that he has put into F1. Max Verstappen, for me, is one of the greatest of the sport. Everyone can have opinions. We live in a free world, but I think he has his opinions about me. I think I proved myself to be in F1. I won F3 and F2 as a rookie. Bortoleto continued, I'm going to prove him wrong with time. It's just a matter of time. Nothing I can say to the media right now will change his mind, because he's just talking and talking. The only thing I can do now is head to the track and prove this is my argument and that he is wrong. Hopefully with time he will admit, okay, my opinion wasn't right, and he will regret what he said. But I've done this in the past as well. I've said things probably that I regret, that I don't agree with nowadays. It's normal. I'm not going to make a big deal about things. Bortoleto has risen to F1 as part of Fernando Alonso's management stable, and the two-time world champion was also asked for his take on Marko's assessment during the Thursday media activities. I think Helmut has to defend his drivers, said the Spaniard, with Bortoleto beating Red Bull-backed Isaac Hadjar, who is also preparing for his F1 debut, to last season's F2 title. I think the facts are a little bit stronger than Helmut's words. I think maybe it refers to last year's F2 championship with Isaac and Gabriel. They finished 1-2, they both have incredible talent, and they are both in F1, which is a great sign. Let's see what the future brings. I hope for both to have a very long and successful career, but what Gabriel did, winning F3 and F2 in his rookie seasons, I think the future will tell, but I'm happy and proud of Gabriel. As am I. I'm happy for Gabby too. I mean, when I interviewed him, it was looking pretty much certain that he was going to sign for Sauber at that point, you know, and he was a McLaren junior, of course, as well, you know, and McLaren have had some very good juniors over the years too, the likes of Lando Norris coming through there, and a certain Sir Lewis Hamilton. Did a video a while back going over all the McLaren juniors, actually. If you want to check that out, please do, of course. But yeah, I mean, listen, it's Helmut stirring the pot, and I didn't really make the connection about Hadjar, to be honest, when he said those comments, so that does make a little bit more sense, but come on, man. You're an 80-year-old bloke. Why are you going insulting someone who's like 20 or whatever like this? I think it's a bit pathetic, to be honest. And again, I get you want to say that Hadjar is a good driver, and I do think he's a good driver. I think he's a real talent, and I also think he probably has a bit of work to do on himself to become more consistent, but he's not even started his first race yet in F1. He could well hit the ground running and be the rookie of the season for all we know. We don't know. I doubt it, but it could happen. But yeah, I don't really expect Bortoleto to be competing on the same bit of track that much. Maybe a little. Racing Bulls, I don't think are going to have a great season, although they were really good in practice earlier on today on Friday as I record this. But yeah, it just comes across as disrespectful. There's no need for it. And for what it's worth, I hope he does prove him wrong. I hope he does do well, does Gabriel Bortoleto. In terms of results, in terms of points and things like that, I'm not really expecting much out of him this season. Same with Nico Hülkenberg, who was, of course, vastly more experienced than Gabriel Bortoleto. I think the Sauber is really going to struggle this season. What will be a more telling example of his talent for me will be how he gets on against Hülkenberg this year. If he manages to stay within a reasonable margin of someone who has, 300 race starts or something like that now. He's been going for ages as Hulk. I think that would be a good season, as long as he's around his teammate. I think that's the main thing. And then next year, hopefully they can push on with the Audi money and, be at least a successful midfield team and able to compete with the other guys in regular points. That'll be the telling of what his F1 career is. So that's just my take on it, guys. I know there's going to be a few people who agree with me and probably some that disagree with me too. So there's been a lot of talk about the V10 engines eventually coming back to Formula 1, a move that would be extremely popular with a lot of fans. But drivers and team personnel are very much split on the issue. The FIA president, Mohammed Ben Sulayem, the F1 president, Stefano Domenicali, and of course Sir Lewis Hamilton are all heavily in favour of the V10s coming back. However, team principals of Ferrari and Mercedes, Frederick Vasseur and Toto Wolff respectively, are both against the proposals. Now, the reigning world champion, the four-time defending world champion Max Verstappen, has also waded in on the debate. He is questioning all the shouting about the V10s, and I don't think he is talking about the biblical levels of noise that those old engines used to produce. So let's have a look at what the Flying Dutchman has said. Full article on the F1Chronicle.com as always. Max Verstappen has questioned how seriously Formula 1 fans should be interpreting the latest rumours about the return of the V10 engines to the grid. Multiple authoritative figures from F1 CEO Stefano Domenicali to FIA President Mohammed Ben Sulayem to Toto Wolff, Christian Horner, Frederick Vasseur, Sir Lewis Hamilton and beyond have been pondering the idea in recent days. It was Ben Sulayem's latest comments that really added fuel to the speculation, however, as he suggested that the advent of the fully sustainable fuel in F1 could make light, loud, crowd-pleasing V10s a realistic option for 2030. I think it's a very nice idea, quadruple world champion Verstappen told Viaplay at the weekend, but the question is whether it's possible. Indeed, F1 is actually doubling down on its hybrid power units era from 2026, with even heavier and more electrified engines than is the case today. Verstappen wonders if Ben Sulayem is speaking out of turn. Not for the first time. I think it's better not to shout about so many things, and that it's better to solve these kind of things behind the scenes, said the Dutchman. That's better for everyone. Verstappen and the FIA president have been at odds for months, particularly over the swearing ban that cost the 27-year-old a day of community service in Rwanda last December. He was there for the FIA prize-giving ceremony. He wasn't just sent out to do that. In response, the Red Bull driver says he might do all of his swearing in Limburgish from now on. Yes, I can do that, Verstappen laughed. I already did it often enough back in karting. These are all very silly things that I really don't want to deal with, but it is what it is. Indeed, it is a very silly thing for sure, and I've already given my thoughts on the swearing ban and all that good stuff, to say the least. Go check out my old videos about Mohammed Ben Sulayem and the rule with all that stuff, because someone already has been punished in well, in F1 for a start with Verstappen, but also in the World Ride Championship. Someone got fined for very heavily for it, swearing in a press conference or an interview of some kind. So they've got to be careful what they say, which I think is ridiculous. But let's get back to the topic at hand, V10s. Now, politics. So the FIA president and the F1 CEO are both aligned on wanting V10s to come back to Formula 1. I think 2030 is probably a bit soon. I don't see it happening then. I think sometime in the 2030s later on, though, is a realistic possibility. If the sustainable fuels are indeed sustainable and work as interpreted and hoped, then I think it's a possibility they come back. Then I think 2030 is probably a bit too soon, because they're aiming to go net zero by then, and I think it's a big risk going for the V10s like that personally. And I don't see F1 abandoning the ethos, the philosophy of these engines that are coming up. I know they're kind of an evolution in a sense of what we've got now in terms of how much hybrid and electric power you're going to have there. But I don't see them really abandoning them after 4 seasons. I think that's a bit too soon. After 10 seasons, perhaps. But yeah, politics. And basically what Ben Sulayem is doing, and yes, you can call him an idiot, and I have called him worse than an idiot in the past. But when it comes to stuff like this, I think he knows what he's doing. What he's doing is he's wanting his case to be out in the public sphere, because he knows that average George, John and Jane on the street very much likes the V10s because they're loud and aggressive, and they are just the glory days of Formula 1, which I've spoken about at length in the past. But from a optics point of view, from a show point of view, the engines themselves were fantastic. It was the other things around the engine, such as refueling and some of the kind of lacking competitiveness when it comes to the top of the sport. That was the problem back in the day. The engines themselves, though, were great, and I'd have them back in a heartbeat for sure from an entertainment point of view, but it has to be sustainable. But Ben Sulayem knows that by putting that out there into the public sphere, being like, oh yeah, we're thinking about putting V10 engines back in the car, then people are going to be like, yeah, let's do it, yeah, glory days of F1, fantastic, yeah, you know. And then when they see the party poopers, as it were, you know, the Toto Wolves and the Vassors of the world being like, actually, it's probably not a great idea, which is a legit opinion, you know, but they're going to, you know, he knows that the public's going to be like, oh, you guys are boring, why are you doing that? Oh god, you're the problem with F1. And it's very much getting pressure off of him then, because of course he's under a lot of pressure, so he's looking for as many PR wins as he can get. And this very much, even if the V10s never happen, it's very much a PR win for him, because he's supporting the thing that the popular man, or the popular crowd really want to go for. So that's my kind of, is it a conspiracy theory? No, it's just politics, man. That's just what it is. But yeah, your thoughts in the comments below, guys. Is it likely to happen? Is it not? What do you think? Should we be focusing on different things in Formula 1 right now? I think we probably should, but hey, we love to speculate at the end of it. So Audi are joining the grid officially in 2026. For now, they are still Sauber, but that team is very much coming into place now. They've got the 2 drivers that will lead them into the new era of the regulations, Nico Hülkenberg and Gabriel Bortoleto. Mattia Binotto, the team principal, is now decked out in some some Sauber gear, I should say, although they may still look like what they're going to have for Audi next year. And Binotto's come out with an interesting quote. He said that nobody is doubting Audi's Formula 1 commitment now. So what's happened? What's made him say that? Let's have a look at this, guys. Full article on the F1Chronicle.com as always. Mattia Binotto seems prepared to see the neon green, black and Sauber cars once again at the very rear of the Formula 1 grid in 2025. This season is the last one before the now fully Audi-owned Swiss-based team completes its transition to become the works Audi outfit from 2026 and beyond. We are at the beginning of the journey to transform Sauber into the Audi Formula 1 team and ultimately definitely into a top team. The Italian, who returned to Formula 1 last year after losing his role as Ferrari team principal in 2022, said. Binotto is overseeing the Sauber to Audi transition as he tells Germany's Automotor und Sport that the goal is to fight for the World Championship in 2030. We have 5 seasons ahead of us until then, he explained. Of these 5 years, the first 3 will be used to build the team and the next 2 to consolidate and fine-tune so that we can achieve our goals. You cannot achieve this transformation in 1 season or a few months. Where are we? The team is not yet where we want to be. Neither in terms of manpower nor tools, but we see the necessary growth. The target for 2025, therefore, is to simply take more steps on the road for the future. For example, by adding another 200 people to the staff roster and working on setting up the new UK-based secondary facility. Did not know they were doing that. That's interesting. Obviously, Sauber are one of 3 Formula 1 teams on the grid that are not based in the UK primarily. You've obviously got Ferrari in Italy. You've got Toro Rosso. Oh, goodness, that is a blast from the past. Tells you how much they've changed the names over the years. Minardi, yes, I'm referring to Minardi. The Racing Bulls, they are also based in Italy, and Sauber are based in Switzerland. Haas are a little different. They've got a base in the US, the UK, and Italy. They've got something in the UK, so for them to get something, presumably in Motorsport Valley, is a positive step because that would help get the staff members on side. A lot of people don't want to move to Sauber because it's in Switzerland. Even though Switzerland's lovely, it's expensive, so that factors into it, of course. Results this year, Binotto admits, are not too important. We are in a different situation to the others, he said. We have to improve as a team. Our project has to be credible and attractive. This makes it all the easier for us to attract people and sponsors and motivate the existing team. So in terms of the actual 2025 car, all Binotto wants is a demonstration that we have learned and understood the lessons of the previous season. We cannot wait it until 2026 to prove this, said Binotto. So for me, 2025 is an important season. We are hoping for a good start to the season, which will then allow us to focus on 2026 as early as possible. There might be more than one upgrade, but there will not be many. Binotto also admits to hoping that the old perception that Audi and Volkswagen may be regretting the decision to enter Formula 1 disappears in 2025. Audi is fully behind it, and I don't think anyone doubts that anymore, he said. The fact that Qatar's sovereign wealth fund is involved in the project was an important message. It also sends the message internally that this is a long-term commitment from Audi. I think it says a different message. I'll just touch on that at the end. We're almost at the end of the article. For 2026, Audi intends to only supply its own works team with engines, but Binotto says it will be at least important to follow the lead of rival teams by forming political alliances with the pit lane. That's a good point, he said. There are a few teams that are not in any alliance. It would be good if those teams formed one. I mean, personally for me, I think Qatar buying a stake in Audi, that is more to do with the Volkswagen financial issues that are going on right now than anything else. I don't think they would have wanted to do that. Yes, you could argue getting a team, kind of another investor on board is a good thing for the team. That's not dissimilar to many of the other teams. Like, I don't know if they still do, but I know for years and years, McLaren were part owned by Mansour Ojei, who is... or was, I think he passed away actually not too long ago. Apologies if that's not the case, but he was from Bahrain. You know, having these backers on board, and that was going all the way back to the 80s as well. I think he was on board even in the Senna and Prost days. So, you know, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I don't think they would have wanted to do it so early. They'll say, well, it was a good opportunity and we took it, but I think they took it because they needed to. They're in a bit of financial trouble, our Volkswagen Audi's group, so we'll see what happens with this, guys. I mean, for me, Sauber are very much still going to be the favourites to finish last this year. If they have progress, if they get points in multiple races, that'd be good. Show a bit of pizzazz about the team, you know, a bit of momentum to draw from going into 2026, but right now, they're not looking great. They should put all their eggs in the 2026 basket, if I'm being honest. I really do think that just right off this year. And he's kind of alluding to that, Mattia Binotto. He's more than alluding to it there. I wanted to switch as early as possible. I think they might have already switched, or switched after the first race or something, but we'll see what happens, guys. Another day, another provocative comment from none other than Red Bull Racing's Dr. Helmut Marko. Now, he's had his word on Lando Norris and his talents for the and chances for the 2025 World Championship title. He's actually ranked Norris's chances higher than four-time defending world champion Max Verstappen, who does, of course, race for Red Bull. And now he is stirring the pot in Ferrari, where he said that Charles Leclerc is clearly faster than Sir Lewis Hamilton in 2025. Pinches of salt at the ready, guys. Prepared to take these comments with them. Let's have a look at the full article here on the F1Chronicle.com, as always. All the hype surrounding Lewis Hamilton's move to Ferrari is unlikely to translate into a world championship. That is the view of Red Bull advisor Dr. Helmut Marko, who thinks McLaren is the clear favourite heading into Melbourne, with Red Bull on their heels. Ferrari is, according to our calculations, the third strongest force, just ahead of Mercedes, the Austrians told RTL. And in Bahrain, Charles Leclerc was clearly faster than Hamilton, but that's normal, Marko explained. He, Leclerc, knows the team, he knows the car. Hamilton drove a lot of laps and gradually improved, but he wasn't quite at Charles Leclerc's level. However, it is early days. We know that Hamilton can improve supernaturally, but it could also be the case that if the factors don't line up and he sees no chance of winning, his motivation will drop a little. Kind of disagree with that, but I'll go into more about that at the end of the video. Ferrari team boss Fred Vasseur admitted that at the Milan Street event on Thursday that the new 2025 car is 2 or 3 tenths off McLaren's ultimate pace. They're in a better position than us, he said. This is the last year of the current regulations and performance gains are becoming increasingly difficult to achieve. It's true that we scored the most points in the last 8 races of 2024, but they, McLaren, had a real performance advantage that they didn't exploit as much as they should have due to small problems or missed opportunities. But if we gain 2 or 3 attempts, we'll have every chance. Ralf Schumacher, meanwhile, thinks the comparisons between his older brother's arrival at Ferrari in 1996 to Hamilton's first season in red are wide of the mark. When Michael went to Ferrari, he was not only the current world champion, but also the acknowledged best driver. Neither of these things applies to Lewis anymore, Ralf told Sky Deutschland. Nevertheless, Michael still needed 5 years of hard work to win his first Ferrari title. Lewis doesn't have that time. Schumacher also thinks the fickle Italian press will only give Hamilton 6 months to get up to speed. If things aren't going well by then, all this euphoria will quickly turn into criticism, said the German. As for Leclerc, Vasseur sees no risk that the pressure will also weigh particularly heavy on the 27-year-old's shoulders this year. From day one, I was convinced that Charles would only benefit from Lewis's arrival, said the Frenchman. Maybe it will take some pressure off him and he will be able to focus more on himself. Schumacher, meanwhile, agrees with those who think McLaren could be about to knock Red Bull and Max Verstappen off their perches in 2025. Well, they already did knock Red Bull off their perch in 2024. They won the Constructors' Championship, of course. But yeah, the Drivers' Championship remains elusive. Pierre is no Adrian Newey, he said. I mean, yeah, you can say that again. Max will have to get used to the idea that everything ends someday. I don't think he has a chance this season, no. Oh. Maybe it will help him decide what to do next, but either way, it will be a difficult decision. I feel like that is the headline, isn't it? Schumacher saying that Verstappen has no chance in 2025. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of differences between Michael Schumacher arriving at Ferrari in 96 and Hamilton arriving in 2025. Now, I agree with Ralph that Hamilton doesn't have 5 years to make a turnaround, and not just from the fact that he would be 45 years old by that point. Not so much that, but more from the side that Ferrari won't give him that much time. You know, I mean, I don't think this is going to happen, but let's just say he is, you know, he has a slow 3 seasons at Ferrari, a slow 2 seasons at Ferrari. His contract is not being renewed. Simple as that. With how much he's costing the team, they wouldn't do that. They'd bring somebody else in. But I don't see that happening personally. I think he's going to do a really good job. Now, there are some differences between I agree with what Schumacher's saying. There are some differences between Michael and Lewis in terms of the Ferrari team they are going to. However, I don't agree that Ralph is kind of explaining it correctly there. When Schumacher went to Ferrari in 1996, that car was an absolute dog. It was an awful car. The 96 Ferrari car was hideous for a start. It had the massive what they call them, the side bits on the where the driver's head is. I can't remember the name. Basically, the sides of the car were very high, and it looks ugly. It was horrible. And Michael still managed to get some wins. In fairness, I mean, that win in Spain in '96 was absolutely mesmeric. One of the greatest wins in Formula One history. I'm not even going to say in my opinion. It was. It absolutely was. The Regenmeister absolutely making his name there. If he didn't already have it, of course. Now, yes, I think at that time Schumacher was very much acknowledged as being the best driver on the grid, and it's debatable with with Hamilton. You know, you could definitely say he's one of, you know, but you wouldn't say that he is the clear best. I think right now the clear best is Max Verstappen, and I don't think anybody's going to deny that. And I think if you do deny that, to be honest, I think you're in denial, to be honest. I mean, as much as I love Lewis and Piastri and Lando and drivers like that, Max Verstappen's on another level. It really, really is. However, the difference is that Ferrari right now are in a good space. I mean, people are saying they're third, fourth best, and I think that's probably the case, to be honest. But Ferrari in 96 were probably third best, actually. But the gap between them and Williams was massive. It wasn't 0.3 of a second or whatever, you know, what's been talking about half a second. It was like 1.5 seconds. The Williams was the absolute class of the field in 96 and to an extent in 97 as well. So it is different. It is very different. And I don't think it's fair to really compare them, to be honest. It's a very different situation that Ferrari finds itself in now than 29 years ago, and a very different situation that Michael and Lewis find themselves in terms of their career. Hamilton's won his 7 championships already. Michael won the last 2 in 94 and 95 before going to Ferrari, but he was not a defined GOAT by that point. You know, everybody thought he could have been, you know, and he did. He did do that. He rewrote every single record in the book, but he wasn't a greatest of all time by that point. Hamilton is. Hamilton absolutely is. He's top of most of the metrics that you, in terms of totals that you want to succeed as a Formula 1 driver. You know, joint top in championship, most podiums, most wins, most poles, probably most fastest laps, or at least up there anyway in terms of fastest laps. So that's my kind of thoughts on it, guys. What's yours? Does Max Verstappen have no chance of winning the title in 2025? Will Hamilton, is it fair to say that he is slower than Charles Leclerc? I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm not sure about that, but let's see what happens in Melbourne. Let's see what happens in Melbourne. It's going to be interesting for sure. I do get some of the thinking behind it, but I'm not so sure I agree with it. Like, share, comment, subscribe as always to see much more content like this on the world of Formula 1. Have a great weekend, guys. And of course, it's race week. It's Raw Keek. See you very soon for some more Formula 1 content here on the F1Chronicle.com.